Election's over. Time to come together.
I love the checkered shirts.
Right.
You wear checkered shirts sometimes. I'm sure you do too.
I do all the time.
Love them.
Right. I mean, Abby can dress up, and she can dress like the people. That's what I'm getting.
That's right. She is the people.
All right. Now, what's the breaking news?
Our top story this morning: who is Donald Trump going to hire? President-elect Trump holding intense interviews for his cabinet now.
Yep. And this morning we are learning about brand new big names spotted at Trump Tower.
That's right.
Are they just there for the sights, or do they want a job?
You never know. You know who does know? Garrett Tenney's live in Washington, D.C. with the who's who on the list. Good morning, Garrett.
Good morning, Pete Ainsley and Brian. We've seen a lot of familiar faces coming in and out of Trump Tower over the last couple of days, but there have been a few surprises as well, including yesterday's visit by Texas Senator Ted Cruz. You'll remember Cruz was a bitter rival of Mr. Trump throughout the primaries, even calling him a sniveling coward at one time. Despite that, he's now rumored to be among those being considered for Attorney General. Following their meeting, Cruz would only say that he looks forward to working with Mr. Trump to advance conservative principles. Now, some other potential cabinet selections were also spotted throughout the day as well, including Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's also said to be a potential pick to head the Justice Department. Senator Jeff Sessions, who's on the short list for several cabinet positions, including Secretary of Defense, as is retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel also stopped by for some meetings with the transition team, along with Donald Trump Jr. and Mr. Trump's ex-wife, Marla Maples. Tommy Hilfiger was also spotted entering the building, though he does have an office there, so it's not clear if he was actually there for meetings with the transition team. Now, as speculation runs rampant, Mr. Trump weighed in last night on Twitter to respond to reports of infighting among his transition team and to make it clear he's in charge, saying, "Very organized process taking place as I decide on cabinet and many other positions. I am the only one who knows who the finalists are." It is notable, though, that Vice President-elect Mike Pence is quickly having an impact on this transition effort. Throughout the campaign, we heard Mr. Trump promise to drain the swamp. Well, last night we learned his transition team is now removing all lobbyists from that transition effort. Brian, Ainsley, Pete?
Thanks, Garrett.
And that should show. Thank you very much, Garrett. I know with Leslie Stahl, he said, with that question about lobbyists on his transition team, says right now that's the only people there. We took lobbyists because they know their way around. He obviously changed his mind, and that has a lot to do with Mike Pence taking over. He went in there and said, guys, you're out of here. And there's also rumors that anybody associated with Chris Christie was also told to hit the road, including Mike Rogers.
There were also rumors that he was trying to get security clearance for his children so they would have access to emails and he would be able to talk about, secretive stuff with his kids. But he just tweeted out, he said this just happened a few minutes ago. "I'm not trying to get top-level security clearance for my children." This was a typically false news story.
Well, and he does, lays it out, goes over the top of the media. He's battled the media from the beginning. The New York Times has said it supposedly is going to take a hard look at their coverage and do things differently. But as it pertains to the transition, look at the headline just today in the New York Times. Literally, at top of the fold, filings and discord put Trump transition team in a state of utter disarray.
Look at this one from NBC. As Trump leaves pressed behind for a steak dinner, incoming administration already showing lack of transparency because he didn't tell the press that he was going to eat a steak dinner at the 21 Club with his family.
They're going to go after him. He's made some tough calls in the first week, getting his transition team up and going. To call it disarray is absurd.
But there is something that is happening, and there's a constant protest, even in the pouring rain yesterday. And also you have people who are worried about sanctuary cities going away because Donald Trump has this idea that if you sneak in here or come here illegally, that's a problem. And the sanctuary cities say you can stay if you get here. One of those places that illegals can go and feel safe, perhaps, might just be colleges across the country, including one in California.
Well, Stanford, it's a very liberal school, and that area, that whole state, went blue. But there are 500 students and faculty and staff members at Stanford in California that are protesting the policies of Donald Trump, so they're staging a walkout.
They're staging a walkout, and in Rutgers today, so on the East Coast, this is a bi-coastal thing here. They're staging they're pushing for a sanctuary campus. So you've got walkouts, sanctuary campuses. We asked earlier on the chairman of the Iowa House Oversight Committee. His name is Bobby Kaufman. He's got an interesting bill in Iowa. This is what he had to say earlier to address it.
Reports of rooms where you could play with Play-Doh and you could color on books and talk about your feelings. And I was even hearing reports of some schools that were bringing in ponies to be able to get students through the election. Well, for me, that's a waste of taxpayer dollar, and that also doesn't prepare kids for life, because in life, there's winners and losers. And in life, when your car breaks down, your kids get sick, or you have to take a second job up to pay your mortgage, you don't get to go to a cry zone. You don't get to pet a pony. You have to deal with it, which is why I came up with the bill, and the idea inspired Suck It Up, Buttercup.
Suck It Up Buttercup bill that would pull funds from schools that have these safe zones where everyone gets a trophy, because that's where these protests come from later on.
So we have sanctuary cities, these sanctuary campuses. So if you go to the schools and you're here illegally, they will protect you. That's the idea.
Right. Also, there's high schools letting their kids out during the day. If one kid slips out during the day at a high school, that the monitor's in trouble, teachers are in trouble, and the kid's in trouble. But now they're suddenly open up their doors, telling these kids to go to the malls, go out in the street, where iPhone footage can be seen, and they act as if the election results are just a bunch of kids acting up. They're actually being pushed out there by their teachers, including that Fame School, up to the famous Fame School by Lincoln Center. They pushed all their kids out, told them to go protest in front of Trump Tower.
You mean teachers pushing social agendas in the classroom? That's nothing. This is an infection of our educational institutions that we're now seeing on our streets, which some are saying protesting, but we're also seeing riots. And there's some interesting aspects we learned about some of these rioters.
Steve Doocy has always said, he said it during the whole election, if you're not going to vote, you are not allowed to complain. That's not what's happening with some of these protests. There was a protest where 112 people were arrested. 70% of them weren't even registered or did not vote. That was in Portland.
That's exactly right. So
that's where the worst rioting was.
So the worst rioting in Portland, descending from out of town, again, so it's not just locals that are frustrated about Donald Trump. An organized effort in Portland, Oregon, 112 arrests. 70% of them haven't voted.
But they have an explanation.
They do have an explanation.
Right.
It's hilarious.
One of the guys who did not vote,
Kevin Grigsby says, I did not vote, and the reason why is because we know the Electoral College is really what matters the most, and I think that we need to change that because your vote doesn't matter if you don't have enough Electoral College points.
So they're complaining because Hillary Clinton won the popular vote.
Are they college points?
Right, absolutely.
Didn't know that.
Welcome to the most frustrating person to debate with. He is Mr. Grimsby. Fantastic. It's fun talking to people, but it is also interesting to hear everyone say, wow, the Electoral College that's a problem.
Yeah,
because now Senator Feinstein says it's outdated, it's a problem. Everybody knows that the popular vote has nothing to do with the Electoral College. It's not wow, I would have won if the popular vote mattered. That's like saying total yards the size of a football game, total hits the size of a baseball game. You have a totally different strategy if it's one person, one vote in popularity.
That's exactly right. And you've written about the founders. There's a reason they did this. Direct democracy they had seen fail elsewhere in the world at other times. And so they said, we're going to do the Electoral College. And guess what? The left was just fine with the Electoral College when it was stacked at 248 votes for Hillary Clinton for sure. She just had to get to 270. Turns out she couldn't do that.
Well, for everyone who's upset, you can go to the polls in 4 more years. You're not going to win every election. All right, let's hand it over to Heather Childers. Who has
you really made him feel better with that.
Sorry.
You really have a way of picking up their moods.
All right, we are following some other news stories for you this morning. We begin with this: nearly 10,000 violent rioters flooding the streets of Greece, causing absolute chaos on President Obama's final world tour. The angry left-wing mob making it within miles of the U.S. Embassy, armed with gas masks, wooden clubs, and Molotov cocktails, some even burning American flags. Residents of the debt-criddled country blaming the U.S. for economic downfall, rising tensions among neighboring countries. And the Oklahoma City airport is back open this morning after the father of an NFL player is gunned down in what's being called a calculated attack. Police say that Michael Winchester, a Southwest employee, was shot in a parking lot at Will Rogers Airport. The airport immediately put on lockdown. The suspect shot himself dead in the airport parking lot. Police found him after hours of combing the area. He has been identified for you this morning. His name is Lloyd Bowie. Now, this is the victim's son. He is James Winchester. He's a long snapper for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Democrats are facing another crisis in the wake of Hillary Clinton's defeat. The House leadership vote now delayed until November 30th, which means bad news for Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi.
Some people who say, you got beat pretty badly here, and this speaks of
leadership.
Well, that
speaks to the presidential race more than our race.
Well, senior Democratic sources telling Fox News that the delay could help Pelosi gain momentum or could usher in some new blood. Ohio Representative Tim Ryan, a Clinton surrogate in the Rust Belt, is rumored to be a possible challenger. And Donna Brazile firing back at CNN following her divorce from the network. The interim DNC chair now claiming that she was railroaded leading up to her resignation last month after WikiLeaks revealed that she passed multiple debate questions to Hillary Clinton. Brazile says, quote, "I wish CNN had given me some other things like the ability to defend myself rather than ripping me a new one." What does she mean? What is that new one? I have no idea. What do you think?
No comment.
I don't know what.
I'm not going to tell you what that means.
I don't know what a new one would be. What would be a new one?
Oh, God.
I don't
People
know.
are eating breakfast this morning. Let's move on. The Trump transition team is working overtime to fill the cabinet positions. Another name on his short list, Senator Tom Cotton. Maybe the senator is going to join us live next.
That's right. And we asked people in battleground states who they were voting for. Now, we want to know, are they happy with the results? Abby Huntsman is cooking up breakfast in Scranton, getting the voice as potential picks for Secretary of Defense, including Jeff Sessions and retired General Keith Kellogg, are spotted at Trump Tower yesterday. Joining us now is another name reportedly on that very same shortlist, Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, Army Ranger, and GOP Senator Tom Cotton. Senator Cotton, thanks for joining us this morning.
Morning, Pete. Great to be on with you.
All right, got to go straight to the top line question. Is Senator Tom Cotton on that short list, and have you talked to Mr. Trump about potentially being the next defense secretary?
Pete, the President-elect and I spoke last week, but only to extend my congratulations on the behalf of the people of Arkansas for his victory. Donald Trump is going to make all these decisions on his own schedule and in due time, and I think it's best that everyone just wait for those decisions. Meanwhile, I'm working in the Senate for the people of Arkansas to help prepare for increased defense spending and holding Iran to account for its malign activities and to try to implement Donald Trump's immigration agenda, and I'm very happy to be doing that.
Sure, we're going to put up a list of other folks on that short list with your name on it as well. Senator Sessions, Representative Duncan Hunter, Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Kellogg. But as you mentioned, you've spent your time in the Senate fighting against the Iran deal, fighting to increase defense spending, two big elements, or fighting for more defense spending and against the sequester, two big elements of what President-elect Trump has talked about. If he were to ask you to serve, if he were to come to you, would you accept that position?
Pete, Donald Trump is going to make all those decisions on his own schedule, and I think it's best that we all just wait for him to make those decisions. But in the meantime, we need to prepare the ground to hit the ground running in January with that new agenda, like repealing those dramatic defense cuts and rebuilding our military and holding Iran to account.
Sure. No, I know it's your job at this aspect not to answer that question just as it's mine to ask it, but I totally appreciate that and understand it's a decision outside of your control at this point. One other aspect, there's a lot of ramifications of President-elect Trump's election. One is the future of Guantanamo Bay, an issue you've talked about a lot. There's been some reports that President Obama could try to loosen the standards and push people out now. What do you see happening in the next couple of months? Does it stay open? And what does the future look like for Guantanamo Bay?
Well, I've been struck since the election not only at Donald Trump's magnanimous tone, but also Barack Obama's gracious beginning of the transfer of power. I would hope that President Obama wouldn't take that kind of dramatic action contrary to the President-elect's wishes. President Bush did not do that when President Obama was coming into office. Guantanamo Bay, though, won't be closed. It might be empty or its population might be reduced, but it will remain open and it will remain a critical tool in our global war against terror.
Well, here's hoping that deference is given in this transition period, and certainly with an ongoing war against an enemy like ISIS and folks like Iran, we're going to need a place to extract information and hold folks. Thank you for leading the charge on issues like this in the Senate. Now you got a lot of work ahead of you today. Senator Tom Cotton, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Pete.
You got it. All right, illegal immigrants coming up with a backup plan if President-elect Donald Trump builds that wall, maybe pardons from President Obama. We'll see. And Abby's having breakfast with friends 1 week after the election. Abby, who are you talking to?
Good morning. We're in Scranton, Pennsylvania. To understand how Mr. Trump won last week, you have to understand what happened right here in Scranton. I'm here with Joe, who is a Navy vet, lifelong Democrat. Joe, who did you vote for this time?
Donald Trump.
I bet you're wondering why he voted for Mr. Trump.
Gradually zoom out. We'll reveal somebody else back on our couch. Jason Miller is the senior advisor to President-elect Donald Trump. And 1 week prior to Election Day, Jason, you were up in radio deal with me and you said, listen, I'm seeing polls. We're going to win. Not many people said you're going to win. They still looked at the underdog. You were convinced. Were you selling me or did you believe that?
I was looking at the numbers, and what we saw is heading into Election Day that these blue states were moving in President-elect Trump's direction. And this trade message, this jobs message, the overall need for change, what he had been talking about on the trail is exactly what people wanted. And so it may have come as a shock to some of the professional prognosticators, but for us, we saw this coming all along.
Interesting. So here we are a week after that, and into the transition. Decisions have been made, changes have been made. You guys are trying to pick a cabinet in due diligence. Yet the New York Times and others are trying to say that it's an utter state of disarray. The New York Times says firing and discord put Trump transition team in a state of disarray in Trump Tower. Give us the real deal. You're behind the curtain. What's happening on the transition right now?
Well, the real deal is the president-elect is going to get this right, and he's going to make sure that every single appointment and every single person he puts into key leadership is someone who's absolute top-notch leadership, who has a good track record, is going to help him implement his agenda. And so you can't always believe what you read in the newspaper.
Really?
As we know.
Breaking news.
But everything, there's a plan. And the president-elect working with Vice President-elect Pence, they have a very systematic plan to go and get things put in place. They want to make sure that everything is put together right, because we don't want to get in there and have any false starts or stumbles. Going to have it right when we're heading in at the beginning, and then we're going to go do some really exciting things.
Jason, there's a list of people in front of us here this morning that have been seen going in and out of Trump Tower lately. I know you're probably not going to reveal too much. Why don't you just smile if any of these people are going to be in cabinet? We've got Tommy Hilfiger. Okay. We have Marla Maples. There's kind of a half smile there. That's
right.
A maybe.
That was a non-reaction.
Ted Cruz.
Great guy.
He's your friend.
He's a great guy.
That you were working with.
What do you make of that? That's one, I think America's looking at it and saying, hey, they were rivals. Now he's at Trump Tower. What do you make of that?
Senator Cruz came on board during the campaign. We're glad to have his support. He's a great ally, and he's offered to help as we're putting things together. And I think he's someone that I think could be a big asset going down the road.
Would you say that more Supreme Court Justice or Attorney General? I mean, he's no stranger to the Supreme Court. He's argued many cases there. Would you say that there will be offers to him and see what he's interested in? Was it more of a feeling out process, or was it like, Ted, I have a job for you in mind. If you're interested, come, and he came?
Well, the thing to keep in mind is that the president-elect is a very successful businessman. And one of the reasons why he's been so successful is he takes in a number of different opinions and puts together his thoughts for how he wants to do this. Senator Cruz is definitely someone who has some very good ideas for how to go and structure the government going forward, has some brilliant insight. And ultimately, though, the picks are going to come down to what the president-elect wants to do.
How do you think it's going to roll out all at once? Because we had 2 Sunday and nothing since. Do you see 15 names at one time? Do you see one at a time? What's the strategy there?
Well, I think the strategy, again, as I said, it's to get it right. I mean, ultimately, as they go through the list, we want to make sure that the people that are being put in place are going to be able to implement the president's agenda. And keep in mind, we want to come out of the gate strong. We want to repeal and replace Obamacare right out of the gate. We're going to come after the tax code and try to get some real reforms that are going to help grow jobs. And we have to secure the border. This is an absolute key priority. And so whoever being put into these positions have the same energy in the fire as the president-elect to go and get this done. Otherwise, they're not going to be considered.
Sure, you've got to have unapologetic folks in all of these departments willing to make the same case he has and go at the swamp. Otherwise, the swamp will quickly absorb you. Part of that swamp are executive orders that he's issued. And President Obama recently has said it's not going to be that easy. Donald Trump can't do as much as he thinks he can with executive orders. Is he standing firm on, hey, things like Obamacare and regulations on energy are going to be gone on day one?
Well, so this is the great thing is that we have someone like Vice President-elect Pence working with this strong team, our transition team, to go and figure out the best legislative strategy. And you've seen some of these congressional leaders coming into the building, and the president-elect meeting with some of these congressional leaders in Washington. They're already working on these plans, and so we're ready to hit the ground running on day one. And so some of those might be executive orders, some of those might be legislation that they bring up right away, some of them might be a little bit further down the road, but they're going to do everything he said
Jason,
on the campaign trail.
Huge responsibility for Donald Trump, because people have voted, and he has 4 years to change this country for the better, according to the people who voted for him.
And the thing to keep in mind with all these people that he's putting in place is that he has the judgment to make sure that the right people are being put in. And I think the American people are going to be very proud with who he picks.
I heard that picking the national security team are Pete Hoekstra, Frank Gaffney, Devin Nunes. Are they playing the key role for putting the security team together?
There's a big, broad group, and I'd say the key leaders on that are Vice President-elect Pence, as well as our Executive Director, Rick Dearborn, for the transition team. And there are a number of other folks who are helping with it, but it's a big, broad group of ultimately, it comes down to the president-elect. He'll be the one who ultimately makes all the decisions.
You going to stay with the campaign?
Whatever the president-elect asks me to do.
Going to Washington, you would do it if asked.
Whatever he asks me to do, I'm there to
I think
help.
that's a yes.
Good answer.
Thanks, Jason.
Jason, thanks
All
a
right,
lot.
Jason, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congrats.
Okay.
All right, let's hand it over to our friend Heather Childers, who has some more headlines.
Nice to be with you guys this morning.
Nice to see you.
Some stories that we've been following since Fox and Friends first this morning. They are in the country illegally, and now they're demanding President Obama issue as many as 750,000 pardons in a last-ditch effort to stop deportations. A massive rally is planned in New York City today over President-elect Donald Trump's immigration plan. Mr. Trump wants to cancel an Obama administration order that protects young undocumented adults, known as Dreamers, and grants them taxpayer benefits. And the election may be over, but Hillary Clinton's legal troubles are not. Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz now vowing to keep her email probe open.
We got to get to the truth. It was never about the political targeting of Hillary Clinton, but she did create one of the biggest security breaches in the history of the State Department. So we have tens of thousands of documents we still haven't seen.
Clinton blames her loss on FBI Director James Comey, who reopened the case just 11 days before the election. And a warning from doctors this morning about the health of your children. Apparently, they're concerned that President-elect Trump might overturn Michelle Obama's school lunch guidelines and ruin all the progress that the country's made against the obesity epidemic. Those doctors also concerned that children may ask their parents for more fast food because they see President Trump eating it on TV. The government's current school lunch program has come under fire for years for not appearing as appetizing as advertised. So what do you think? Is it as appetizing? Kind of bland looking there.
Italian dunkers and the things I loved in elementary school. I don't want a salad. Pizza? Yeah.
I think the salad looks really good.
Get out of town. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. All right, I think Janice Dean is outside. Janice, what are we expecting today?
We are expecting a big winter storm. Can you tell I'm excited? I really want to do my first snow angel of the year. Let's take a look at it. It's moving across the northern plains and then into the upper Midwest. It's just starting to get its act together, but this is going to be a big one. We have blizzard watches in effect for parts of Minnesota and the Dakotas. Pete, I hope your family is listening. There it is, winter storm advisories for millions of folks, and there is our blizzard watch that's in effect, as this is going to affect the region Thursday and Friday. Up to a foot or more of snow and blizzard conditions. So there's the future radar as we get further out in time. Thursday, Friday, and then what's going to happen on the weekend? We actually could see some measurable snow across the Northeast. So will my wish come true that I can do a snow angel? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned,
Back inside.
we will be.
Okay.
I have a feeling we're going to be doing a lot of those together. Over the next few months.
You're a snow angel girl too?
I love it.
I knew I loved you for a
reason.
reason, Ainsley.
Look out, though. I'm a snowball guy, so.
All right, 19 minutes before the top of the hour. It's been on the GOP's go-to list and the to-do list for decades. But President-elect Donald Trump plans to tackle taxes in his first 100 days. Is it finally possible? The man leading that fight, the chairman of Ways and Means, Kevin Brady, joins us live. Also, he's going to be pushing for the TPP. How will that go?
And you've seen all the people crying over the results of this election, but one lawmaker has a message for them. Suck it up, Buttercup.
In Washington, Congressman Kevin Brady of Texas. Chairman, first off, people are wondering, we hear this talk all the time about proposed plans. Are you guys ready?
We will be ready. It is really exciting. We've got a president in Donald Trump who wants to fix this broken tax code, get the economy going. And so House Republicans, we've had a head start on this for many years. We're going to be ready to go.
You're speaking in one voice. So without getting too caught up in it, unless you're an accountant, we could easily lose people. So in bullet form, tell us what's in your plan.
Yeah, there is three. First, this is a tax code not designed to wring money from you, which is the one we have today.
This beautiful Wednesday, it's November 16th. I'm Ainsley Earhart. Who is hired and who is fired? President-elect Donald Trump forming his cabinet now. A lot of high-profile people on the list, and some were spotted at Trump Tower, including former rival Ted Cruz, Senator Jeff Sessions, as well as Tommy Hilfiger.
Okay. All right, then. It might be the most outrageous behavior we've seen yet from our president-elect. Quote, Trump leaves press behind for steak dinner. showing an utter lack of transparency. Well, that's what NBC has to say, and apparently to them, that's actually news.
All right, while some were still crying over the election, college kids are walking out of class today, and some high school kids in protest of the president-elect's policies. But didn't a lot of these people not even vote?